The Old City is a 0.9 square kilometers walled area within the modern city of Jerusalem. Until 1860, when the Jewish neighborhood Mashkenat Sha'ananim was established, this area constituted the entire city of Jerusalem. The Old City is home to several sites of key religious importance: the Dome of the Rock and a Lake USA Mosque for Muslims, the Temple Mount and Western Wall for Jews, and the Church of the Holy Sepulchre for Christians. It was added to the UNESCO World Heritage Site list in 1981. Traditionally, the Old City has been divided into 4 uneven quarters, although the current designations were introduced only in the 19th century. Today, the Old City is roughly divided into the Muslim Quarter, Christian Quarter, Armenian Quarter and Jewish Quarter. The Old City's monumental defensive walls and city gates were built in the years 1535 to 1542 by the Turkish Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent. The current population of the Old City resides mostly in the Muslim and Christian quarters. As of 2007, the total population was 36,965. The breakdown of religious groups in 2006 was 27,500 Muslims, 5,681 Christians, not including the 790 Armenians, and 3,089 Jews. Following the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, the Old City was captured by Jordan and all its Jewish residents were evicted. During the Six-Day War in 1967, which saw hand-to-hand fighting on the Temple Mount, Israeli forces captured the Old City along with the rest of East Jerusalem, subsequently annexing them as Israeli territory and reuniting them with the western part of the city. Today, the Israeli government controls the entire area, which it considers part of its national capital. However, the Jerusalem Law of 1980, which effectively annexed East Jerusalem to Israel, was declared null and void by United Nations Security Council Resolution 478. East Jerusalem is now regarded by the international community as part of occupied Palestinian territory. In 2010, Jerusalem's oldest fragment of writing was found outside the Old City's walls. History. According to the Bible, before King David's conquest of Jerusalem in the 11th century BCE, the city was home to the Jebusites. The Bible describes the city as heavily fortified with a strong city wall. The city ruled by King David, known as David, or the City of David, was southeast of the Old City walls, outside the Dung Gate. His son King Solomon extended the city walls and then, in about 440 BCE, during the Persian period, Nehemiah returned from Babylon and rebuilt them. In 4144 CE, Agrippa, king of Judea, built a new city wall known as the Third Wall. Muslims occupied Jerusalem in the 7th century under the second caliph, Umar ibn al-Khattab, who annexed it to the Islamic Arab Empire. He granted its inhabitants an assurance treaty. After the siege of Jerusalem, Sophronius welcomed Umar because, according to biblical prophecies allegedly known to the church in Jerusalem, a poor, but just and powerful man, would rise to be a protector and ally to the Christians of Jerusalem. Sophronius believed that Umar, a great warrior who led an austere life, was a fulfillment of this prophecy. In the account by the Patriarch of Alexandria, Eutychius, it is said that Umar paid a visit to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and sat in its courtyard. When the time for prayer arrived, however, he left the church and prayed outside the compound. In order to avoid having future generations of Muslims use his prayer there as a pretext for converting the church into a mosque. Eutychius adds that Umar also wrote a decree which he handed to the Patriarch, in which he prohibited Muslims gathering in prayer at the site. In 1099, Jerusalem was captured by the Western Christian army of the First Crusade and it remained in their hands until recaptured by the Arab Muslims. led by Saladin, on October 2, 1187. He summoned the Jews and permitted them to resettle in the city. In 1219, the walls of the city were raised by Mu'azzam, Sultan of Damascus. In 1229, by treaty with Egypt, Jerusalem came into the hands of Frederick II of Germany. In 1239 he began to rebuild the walls, but they were demolished again by Daud, the Emir of Kerak. In 1243, Jerusalem came again under the control of the Christians, and the walls were repaired. The Khwarezmian Tartars took the city in 1244 and Sultan Malik al-Mu'tasim raised the walls, rendering it again defenseless and dealing a heavy blow to the city's status. The current walls of the Old City were built in 1535–42 by the Ottoman Turkish Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent. Altogether, the Old City walls contain 35 towers, most of which are in the more exposed northern wall. Suleiman's wall had 6 gates, to which a 7th, the New Gate, was added in 1887. Several other, older gates, the Golden Gate being one of them, have been walled up over the centuries. In 1980, Jordan proposed that the Old City be listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It was added to the list in 1981. In 1982, Jordan requested that it be added to the list of World Heritage in Danger. The United States government opposed the request, noting that the Jordanian government had no standing to make such a nomination and that the consent of the Israeli government would be required since it effectively controlled Jerusalem. In 2011, UNESCO issued a statement reiterating its view that East Jerusalem is part of the occupied Palestinian territory, and that the status of Jerusalem must be resolved in permanent status negotiations. Jerusalem Quarters. Muslim Quarter. The Muslim Quarter is the largest and most populous of the 4 quarters and is situated in the northeastern corner of the Old City, extending from the Lion's Gate in the east, along the northern wall of the Temple Mount in the south, to the western wall, Damascus Gate route in the west. Its population was 22,000 in 2005. Like the other 3 quarters of the Old City, the Muslim Quarter had a mixed population of Jews as well as Muslims and Christians until the riots of 1929. Today, there are many Israeli settler homes, and several yeshivas, including Yeshivat Ataret Yerushalayim, in the Muslim Quarter. Christian Quarter. The Christian Quarter is situated in the northwestern corner of the Old City, extending from the New Gate in the north, along the western wall of the Old City as far as the Jaffa Gate, along the Jaffa Gate, a western wall route in the south, bordering the Jewish and Armenian quarters, as far as the Damascus Gate in the east, where it borders the Muslim Quarter. The quarter contains the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, viewed by many as Christianity's holiest place. Armenian Quarter. The Armenian Quarter is the smallest of the 4 quarters of the Old City. Although the Armenians are Christian, the Armenian Quarter is distinct from the Christian Quarter. Despite the small size and population of this quarter, the Armenians and the Patriarchate remain staunchly independent and form a vigorous presence in the Old City. After the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, the 4 quarters of the city came under Jordanian control. Jordanian law required Armenians and other Christians to give equal time to the Bible and Quran in private Christian schools, and restricted the expansion of church assets. The 1967 war is remembered by residents of the quarter as a miracle, after 2 unexploded bombs were found inside the Armenian monastery. Today, more than 3,000 Armenians live in Jerusalem, 500 of them in the Armenian Quarter. Some are temporary residents studying at the seminary or working as church functionaries. The Patriarchate owns the land in this quarter as well as valuable property in West Jerusalem and elsewhere. In 1975, a theological seminary was established in the Armenian Quarter. After the 1967 war, the Israeli government gave compensation for repairing any churches or holy sites damaged in the fighting, regardless of who caused the damage. Jewish Quarter. The Jewish Quarter lies in the southeastern sector of the walled city, and stretches from the Zion Gate in the south, bordering the Armenian Quarter on the west, along the Cardo to Chain Street in the north, and extends east to the Western Wall and the Temple Mount. The quarter has a rich history, with a nearly continual Jewish presence since the 8th century BCE. In 1948, its population of about 2,000 Jews was besieged, and forced to leave en masse. The quarter was completely sacked by Arab forces during the Battle for Jerusalem, and ancient synagogues were destroyed. The Jewish Quarter remained under Jordanian control until its recapture by Israeli paratroopers in the Six-Day War of 1967. A few days later, Israeli authorities ordered the demolition of the adjacent Moroccan Quarter, forcibly relocating all of its inhabitants in order to facilitate public access to the Western Wall. The section of the Jewish Quarter destroyed prior to 1967 has since been rebuilt and settled, and has a population of 2,348. Many large educational institutions have taken up residence. Before being rebuilt, the quarter was carefully excavated under the supervision of Hebrew University archaeologist Naaman Avigad. The archaeological remains are on display in a series of museums and outdoor parks, which tourists can visit by descending 2 or 3 stories beneath the level of the current city. The former chief rabbi is Rabbi Avigdor Nebenzal, and the current chief rabbi is his son Rabbi Chiskayahu Nebenzal, who is on the faculty of Yeshivat Netiv Yair, which is situated directly across from the Kotel. The quarter includes the Karaite Street, on which the old Anan ben David Knesset is located. Moroccan Quarter. There was previously a small Moroccan quarter in the Old City. Within a week of the Six-Day War's end, the Moroccan Quarter was largely destroyed in order to give visitors better access to the Western Wall by creating the Western Wall Plaza. The parts of the Moroccan Quarter that were not destroyed are now part of the Jewish Quarter. Simultaneously with the demolition, a new regulation was set into place by which the only access point for non-Muslims to the Temple Mount is through the Gate of the Moors, which is reached via the so-called Mufrabi Bridge. Gates. During different periods, the city walls followed different outlines and had a varying number of gates. During the era of the Crusader Kingdom of Jerusalem, for instance, Jerusalem had 4 gates, 1 on each side. The current walls were built by Suleiman the Magnificent, who provided them with 6 gates. Several older gates, which had been walled up before the arrival of the Ottomans, were left as they were. As to the previously sealed Golden Gate, Suleiman at first opened and rebuilt it, but then walled it up again as well. The number of operational gates increased to 7 after the addition of the new gate in 1887, a smaller 8th one, the Tanner's Gate, has been opened for visitors after being discovered and unsealed during excavations in the 1990s. The sealed historic gates comprise 4 that are at least partially preserved, with several other gates discovered by archaeologists, of which only traces remain, or of Al-Burak south of the Golden Gate. Until 1887, each gate was closed before sunset and opened at sunrise.